Help me open the meeting with the moment of silence, followed by the we version. Thank you. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need to always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. If anyone here represents a media agency, please contact Mark N. The members of North Central Indiana area of Narcotics Anonymous welcome you to the 3rd annual We Grow with Love convention. We would like to thank you for joining us in the celebration of recovery. We are deeply grateful to Narcotics Anonymous and find great joy in being able to express our gratitude here with you, our family. In Narcotics Anonymous, we are certain that when we come together, we share our lives and our love with each other, a miracle happens. Our recovery takes hard work and courage and commitment. Those are the things that carry us through as we seek the spiritual growth that comes from working the 12 steps. Never alone. We do this together and for each other, knowing that we need each other because more than anything else, we grow with love. The prefix of the basic text begins, the full fruit of a labor of love lives in the harvest, and that always comes in its right season. For us, the season has come. Would someone read Just for Today? Lori?
My name is Lori Nutmatter.
Hello.
Just for today, my thoughts will be on my recovery, living and enjoying life without the use of drugs. Just for today, I will have faith in someone in NA who believes in me and wants to help me in my recovery. Just for today, I will have a program I will try to follow to the best of my ability. Just for today, through NA, I will try to get a better perspective on my life. Just for today, I will be unafraid. My thoughts will be on my newest creations, people who are not using and who have found a new way of life. So long as I follow that way, I will have nothing to fear.
Thanks, Lori. So we're very fortunate in having a couple addicts with us today that I know that it seems very apparent that they're committed to the recovery. They've both been here, all 3 conventions, with us here to celebrate, and I've gotten to know both of them a little bit, and each year it keeps getting better. So, without much ado, I'd like to hear how Patty O commits to her recovery.
Hey, hi, I'm Patty and I'm an addict.
Hi, Patty.
Hi, everyone. I make a commitment to come to this convention every year because I get a lot from it, and I've really this is the best convention because each year, I've gone through lots of different things. I've met wonderful people here. Nancy's one of them. So I just have had magical friendships here, and I've grown a lot from coming here. So that's a little personal commitment I make to myself every year, is being here. It's the first commitment. Recovery and commitment. When I came here and I found out I was doing recovery and commitment, I kind of laughed to myself because this is right where I'm at, dealing with commitment in my recovery. About a month ago, we had a convention in Oak Brook. It was MCC convention, and I went to a workshop on commitment, and I really got a lot out of it. One of the things that I talked about before was about how I've noticed that in recovery, I have selective commitment. There's some things I'll commit to wholehearted,ly. I'll say, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I'll do it. And other things I'm like, yeah, I half-assed about it, and those are the things that I really need to put my commitment into. Commitment, for me, there's certain things with commitment, a lot of times, I know for me initially when I hear the word commitment, I think about relationship, I think of marriage, but it's for me, being a woman, I guess, raised in society, that's what you think of, that's what I was trained to learn. But it's, since being in recovery, I've learned that it's a whole different thing for me, commitment. The hardest commitment I've ever had to work on is the commitment to myself. The commitment to myself, and that's the one that I've slipped up a lot, you know, just really focusing on me, because it's so easy to focus on everybody else, you know. It's so much more easier to focus on the relationship and focus on the job and education and all this other outside shit, you know. And then I get to a point where I hit a bottom, and it's like, well, what about me, you know? And I totally forgot about the commitment I've made to myself since I've been in recovery. One thing that I know about myself, since I was young, I don't know if anybody else does this, but I start something and I never finish it. I used to have a problem with starting all these projects and never finishing shit. You know, starting school and never finishing it, you know, starting this thing and never ever being able to finish and follow through with it. And that really made me feel like such a loser, you know, like I could never do anything because I could never follow through. That all changed when I came to Narcotics Anonymous. I learned how to follow through, you know, going to meetings and staying from beginning to end. And that's hard to do sometimes, especially when you're cynical and you're negative and you're in a shitty spot and people are talking about all shit. You're like, you're all full of shit. You know what the fuck you're talking about. You're all liars, you know. And I it's hard for me, but I gotta stay my butt glued to the chair, you know, because that one sentence somebody said will make all the difference in the world, you know. So I try not to leave before the miracle happens. So I started to learn about commitment through getting a sponsor and calling her, you know, asking her. You know, when I asked my sponsor to be my sponsor, I thought I was asking her to marry me, you know, like, will you be my sponsor? You know, I was like so nervous. I was shaking, and she was like, yeah, and I was like, she said yes. I was so happy, you know, and that was like the first commitment I committed to. That relationship with her, and it was and I still have the same sponsor, you know, for over 4.5 years I've been in recovery. I still have my same sponsor I got clean with, and that's a miracle. And but it's been a rough thing to be able to keep that commitment. And a lot of times, you know, like when there's things going on in the relationship, and if it's not going well, or I'm not doing my part of the relationship, you know, I'm not calling her, I'm not letting her know where I'm at, then it's like, well, I just need to get a new sponsor or something, you know. But really, it's just, you know, I'm not living up to my part of the commitment, you know, the relationship. So I've started to learn how to start something and follow through, and not like I'm not perfect at it, because I still have problems with it today. You know, there's so much I want to do. Since being clean and being in recovery, I have so much that I want to do. You know, there's all this stuff, you know, all this wonderful things that life has to offer, and I want to do it all. You know, I want to have, you know, I want to be a counselor, a therapist. I want to be a musician. I want to be a singer. I want to be an artist. I want to do this, and I make jewelry, and I paint, and I do all this stuff, and I drive myself nuts sometimes, you know, just with all this stuff that I like to do. So I've learned to just be able to commit to little projects at a time, taking little goals, little steps, because that's the way that I do it. You know, I try to stay in the now, here and now, and follow that commitment that way. You know, I try to you know, set goals for myself that are not impossible, you know, short term for me. And when I achieve things today, you know, I follow through with the commitments, and it makes me feel really good to be able to accomplish something. Like 10 months ago, I've always been naturally musically inclined. I've always been able to pick up something and just tap it and play it and be able to, you know, do it. But I was too lazy to, you know, commit to this thing and take lessons and work hard at it, because that's what recovery is about, is working. You know, you got to work hard for this. You can't just sit there and, you know, be like, God, please make me spiritual and make me recover, and all of a sudden you think it's going to happen. You got to do the footwork, you know, and that's part of it, is being able to do the work, you know. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I wish I could do that, I wish I could do that. You can do it, you just gotta put the work into it. When we don't wanna do it, you know, we wanna just have it all and just do it. So I remember I heard myself saying, you know, gee, I wish I could be there, I wish I could do that, or I wish I could play guitar, I wish I could. And someone just said, why don't you just do it? And just shut up and just start doing, you know, just do it. Get a guitar, go take lessons and practice. And it was that easy, you know. I just had to do it, you know, just had to do it. And stop talking so much all the time, you know. And now, today I do things. But once again, you know, I was talking about the hardest commitment is to myself, you know. It's so easy to commit to a relationship and turn your whole everything over, you know, to the relationship and be like, oh, you know, okay, let me put into the relationship and not even like take care of myself, you know. And that's a whole nother way to mask what's really going on, is that I need to deal with myself. And I was talking to somebody yesterday and he told me that when you take care of yourself on the inside, everything else just falls into place, you know, and that's true. And that's a lesson that I constantly need to learn, and I constantly need to hear that. When you take care of the inside, everything else falls into place, you know, relationships, everything, work, you know, just falls into place. And that's really true. And I've been there a couple of times in recovery, you know, where I took good care of the inside, and I was just floating, and I was doing really good, and everything fell into place, and you know. So, another commitment I make in my recovery is showing up to Narcotics Anonymous. You know, people leave Narcotics Anonymous and they get up there in the years and they don't come back. And that pisses me off, you know. But, instead of getting angry about it, I personally made a commitment to myself to keep coming back. For myself and for the newcomer. You know, that's something, Narcotics Anonymous gave me a life, basically, because I didn't have shit. I didn't have a life. So that's a personal commitment. So today I'm working on myself. I'm taking the steps that I need to do to commit to myself and to commit also to my higher power, you know, that everything's going to be okay and it's going to work out, and that I don't need to keep going to the outside, you know. I need to go in within. That's where I'm at with my recovery with commitment. It's a real touchy thing for me, but it's something that I'm not afraid of. I'm not afraid of commitment anymore. You know, I used to think, you know, ball and chain kind of a thing. You know, for the rest of your life, you know, you have to do this. For the rest of your life, you can't use anymore. For the rest of your life, you have to go to me. You know, and since I've been coming to NA, I've learned it's just for today. It's not for the rest of your life. It's for right now. It's for today. It's for here. It's not the ball and chain. It's not for the rest of your life, you know. And at first it was a hard concept to understand, but now I understand it, you know, because the days go by, the years go by, and I'm clean, you know. And I go to meetings, and I call my sponsor, and I do the work, and it's just for today. All those days, all those years, it's just for today, you know. Just living in the here and now. And that's where I'm at today, and that's what got me. But, so, I think that's all I can say about commitment for now. And thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Ben.
Our second speaker is Nancy D. And like I said earlier, she was here all 3 years. So this is the third year for her too. And I don't know what else to say, so I'm just
That's cool.
Thanks for
Thanks.
being here.
Sure. Hi, I'm an addict. My name's Nancy. Hi, Nancy. Grateful to be here with you people today. It's through my program, my higher power, and you people that I can be clean, and that truly is a miracle. I like this topic a lot better than the one I had last year. I don't remember what it was, but I remember I had a hard time with it. But that's okay, you know. Recovery and commitment. Tommy talked a little bit about recovery, a lot about recovery, and a little bit about commitment last night. when you said about your sponsor, what lengths are you willing to go to stay clean, you know? What kind of a commitment are you willing to make? You know, call me every day. And I don't do that with my sponsor. You know, maybe my commitment is slipping a little bit, and I felt it in my program. I felt alienated and a part of, you know, we were here earlier for a part of rather than a, you know, part from. So I need to have this topic. It's funny how God works. I've been praying real hard. That is a commitment I have in my recovery. That things will work out. There's been a lot of indecisions and things that were unclear. You know, it's like there's a pond of water in front of me. That's my life. And there's all these different things inside of it. You know, there's what's going to happen tomorrow and what's going to happen next week. And am I going to get to the convention? When am I going to get here? How am I going to have to work? When are we going to leave? You know, what about my job? I was going to quit my job because I thought I was going to make a commitment to my artwork. And I was willing to do that. You know, I was willing to give up hard money to make a commitment for something that I was very afraid of. You know, that I was going to go out and make money doing my art and it was going to work out just fine. And the people at my job just wouldn't let me go. They were willing to give in to the concessions so I could work when I want, rearrange my schedule, give me the hours so I can make the meetings I need to and find some stability in my life, which I was lacking. So by being unafraid to stand up for what it is that I need, I got what my higher power decided, not what I decided. You know, because maybe, apparently it's not time for me to make that commitment to my art. You know, maybe I'll do it in addition to making some hard cash, who knows? You know, I'm just going to try to do what I can. I need to make an additional commitment to my recovery. I know that it only works as hard as I work it, and if I don't work this program, it don't do shit for me. You know, NA can live without me, but I can't live without NA. And I can't be clean, even 24 hours, without surrendering to my higher power's will. And I heard this morning about the lady that talked about picking up after she'd been out, you know, clean for a few years and hadn't made a commitment to her recovery. And that touched me, and it touched me very deeply. You know, and I just, the inside of me, bad before I got clean. And I almost died, you know, and I'd probably be dead if I went back. I know I was spiritually, emotionally dead. And I made a hell of a commitment to my drugs. I did drugs for 20 years, and I'd do anything for them. And so I should be willing to do anything for recovery. You know, I'll drive any lengths. I've decided that if my recovery is not good in my town, and right now I'm having some trouble with the different meetings, I'm going to go other places. I'm going to find other things to do. You know, if I have to drive 7 hours to get to a convention to see people and get some recovery, that's what I'm going to have to do. It doesn't matter. You know, what's more important, my life or using? And that's what it comes down to. You know, and my life today, it really is wonderful. I have a lot of spirituality and a touch with my higher power when I surrender and let my higher power take care of me. That is truly the hardest thing that I tend to not do, is try to force my will on certain situations. That is something that I have a lot of trouble with, control and determination and ego and all those other character defects. I don't know how it is with addicts. All I know it is with myself that I could have drugged myself in underneath that door, but yet I had all the answers. You know, I didn't have any self-esteem, but I knew everything. And I'm learning today that I need to still be teachable for all the things out there. You know, I need to open my eyes and my ears, mostly my ears, and keep my mouth shut sometimes, you know, so that I can hear what other people have to say. And I don't care how much time you've got clean. If you keep coming to these rooms and you listen, you're going to hear what it is you need to hear that day. There's something, everybody's got something to say, and it may not hit you then, it may hit you later, it may hit you next week. God, I remember she said that, and that's what I need, you know. I always need something from these meetings, and I hope to give something back. It's what our book says, you only keep what you have by giving it away. And I'm grateful today that I can give a part of myself, whatever talent it is. Sometimes all it is a hug and a smile, but that's enough, because it's a part of me. You know, I wouldn't let you see me. There was a day I couldn't get up here and talk to you about the inner part of me, the part that's afraid, and the part that's sensitive, the part that is concerned about what other people think, the part of me that can't accept who I am, the shape I am, the color of my hair, the color of my eyes, the size of my feet, whatever. You know, that's just something that I have to learn to deal with. And if I can accept myself, I can sure as hell start to accept you. And learn to stay out of your life. I just have to try to keep myself in order. And I know this doesn't have a whole lot to do about recovery and commitment, but it is my recovery. My recovery is what's kept me clean for a few 24 hours. Kept me coming back to this convention, and I love this convention. It is truly very spiritual, and it charges me up every time I come here. And I'm very grateful for the people that have helped me and made sure that I have a place to stay and show me the love and compassion that they have. It just is wonderful. And for those of you that are just here, keep coming back. You know, tell your friends, but don't broadcast too much. It's nice because it's small, and you get to see the people, and you get to give them a hug, and if you pass them on the street, you say, I saw them in a workshop, you know, let's talk a little bit about what we heard. Can you relate to this? How do you feel about that, you know? I'm grateful for all you people here. I'm grateful that I have a chance to share what's in my heart and in my soul, and that I'm not afraid to do so. And I know that commitment is important. I think the most important commitment I have to make is to my higher power, and that allowing my higher power to work through me and to just get out of his way, you know, that's an intense commitment. You know, I've always been good. I mean, I made a commitment to my husband, and we made it through using and getting clean and staying clean, and that is truly a miracle, and I'm very grateful for that. I feel my higher power was watching out for me when I met him 13 years ago, you know, and now that we're almost to the halfway point, we've been clean as many years as we used together. You know, that really is something that we managed to work through that. That's not saying life is perfect, but life isn't perfect, you know. You have to learn to work these things out. I have made a commitment to him and him to me. He stays out of my life, I stay out of his. Most of the time. But that's okay, you know. I just felt really peaceful. I took a walk this afternoon before the workshop, did my usual walking around the lake and looking with nature and commuting and praying and finding little things out there that touch me. And I'm going, why didn't I bring my camera again? But I have mental pictures. I have mental pictures of each one of you that I carry with me all the time, thinking about, I wonder how that person's doing, you know, how are they doing today? Hope they're not using. You know, when I say my prayers for the addict who's still out there suffering, that hasn't found recovery or has separated himself from recovery, I hope you're not one of them. You know, find a commitment in your life. Find something that works and stick with it. You know, use the steps. They're written in an order and they're numbered for a certain reason, and follow them. You know, I don't always, you know, I work different steps at different times, but I know that when I don't understand powerlessness, my higher power is going to put me in a situation that I have to learn it all over again. And I'm powerless over just about everything. But that's okay today, I can accept that. And I don't like acceptance either, but that's something I'm working on. You know? That must be that controlling part of me. I want to have my thumb on top of everything and be in charge. But I'm not in charge, and I'm not in charge of this program. But I am in charge of my own, you know, and I'm going to make the decision to do the right thing today. Tomorrow, I'll deal with tomorrow, you know. For right now, I'm glad that you guys are here, and I'm beginning to feel like I don't have anything else to say. So I'm glad you're here, and thanks for coming, and keep coming back. It works when you work it.
Thanks again, Nancy and Patty. And I've heard some things that they were saying that I know that I've got to do in my recovery, and Nancy was talking about the links that she went to use, and when I was first getting serious about my recovery, and I've been in and out of recovery a couple of times, and when I was getting serious and looking for things that were working for other people. Someone shared with me that if I go to the lengths that I went getting drugs to get this recovery, there was no chance of it failing. And I could relate to that, you know. And with Patty, what I like the best about, and I like a lot of what you said, but what I like the best about what you said, that's something that I've had to do is break my commitments down to little simple things, to whether it's just committing to a certain meeting, you know, and I can leave myself flexible, but committing to a home group, little service commitments, or not setting myself up for failure, you know, and when I overcommit myself, that's what I'm doing, and that's what's working for me today. And something that I like to share, and I know that does the most for me in my recovery, and the commitment that does the most for me is making that commitment on a daily basis to work on my recovery, work on looking for my higher power's will in my life, just for that day, and starting the day out with that. And when I do that, and I'm not trying to give anybody the impression that that's the answer to everything. I mean, that's not going to make the whole day go perfect, but my odds are a lot higher. And that's what I've seen. You know, when I skip that, I see the results. So why wouldn't I want to do that? You know, and the more I practice that, the more I'm committed to doing that because of the results. And I'm really grateful to be a part of the convention and be involved with this workshop, because I know that's been the key to my recovery is making those commitments. You know, when I first come around this last time, I was trying to find a balance in my recovery, and I knew that, and I had, first time around I had committed to 90 meetings in 90 days, which was one of the suggestions that I had heard. And I came real close to doing that within a couple meetings, and I know that worked. You know, that was one of the first commitments that I had been able to fulfill in my life. You know, that I knew that was really something that really worked. And so when I came back around this last time, I told myself that I need to make a commitment on how many meetings, but know that I wasn't going to do justice to my program by saying that I was going to make a meeting every day. So what I told myself was that if I didn't go to a meeting today, I would go to one tomorrow, and if I wasn't to one yesterday, I was going to one today. So, you know, in essence, I was doing the same thing, and it did what it needed to do, and it kept me on a commitment to myself. By making that commitment to myself, it kept me on track in my recovery. And I still do that today, but I have the privilege in my recovery to adjust my commitments, and sure, I can make a year commitment for a service position. You know, I can make a weekly commitment to go to a specific meeting, and the fact that my higher power has as much control as what he does in my life, I hesitate in telling someone that, yeah, I'm going to be there, you know, and when I commit to something, I feel that if I say that I'm going to try to be there, you know, that's the commitment I've made to myself. I'm going to do my part in being there, and if it's my higher power's will, then I'll be there. You know, I have to allow my higher power to have some say in that. And the other part of that is when it becomes when it hinders my recovery, then I've got to look at that commitment too. And I was just recently at that stage in the service area, and finished the term, and was asked, you know, whether I would would be at a specific other position, and I said, well, I don't think that's the best thing for me right now, and, you know, and I can do that. But I will commit to still trying to be of service to Narcotics Anonymous, because I still have a lot of paying back to do for all that I've got from here. And before I open the floor to sharing, I need to remind everyone that you are being taped. If you don't wish to be taped, please let me know so we can turn the machine off. And I'm going to open it up. Anyone else is welcome to come up and share.
Thanks, Dan.
I'm an addict. My name's Debbie. Hi, Debbie. Hi, family. A couple things for me today about commitment, and that I was thinking about when the women were sharing. I'm real good at being responsible in NA. It kept me clean the first few years I was here, you know, being real responsible in NA. And I guess one of the uncomfortablenesses that I have today for me, right where I'm at in my recovery and right where I'm at in my life, is that needing to say no. You know, when you're in love with a fellowship that not only saved you, but gave you something worth having, and then to not be able to be there for it, it's a real internal conflict for me. What I know about me is that if I say yes, it will get done, but I know that there will be consequences. One of the things that I always wanted to be when I grew up was a mom, and I find myself struggling when I have these commitments to be a mom, because it's real easy to defocus. I mean, you know, I can like spend the hour that I have with my daughters doing laundry, or it doesn't matter. The bottom line is like we're not together, kind of like being in the same room with a group of people but not being with them. And the longer I'm here, the harder it is to do that. And I really can understand and relate to those who came before me and their need to pull away from the commitment or the overcommitment to start to find some balance in life. The other thing that's been real prevalent for me today has been with the women that I sponsor, and standing behind what I said I would do, but not doing any more than I can do, not doing things that aren't mine to do. One of the biggies for me is that if I can't talk to you, if I have a sponsor that calls me and I can't talk to them, I need to tell them I can't talk to them, because it's not fair to listen and not be there. I mean, I've done the sponsorship calls before. I mean, I'm sure my sponsor's done them too, you know. But what I know today is that that's not what I made a commitment to do for them. You know, that is not why they asked me to sponsor them. That's not what I want from my sponsor. And you know, I can remember the times when I called my sponsor and she said, I can't talk right now. And I hung up the phone and said, she doesn't want to sponsor me and she can't tell me. I'll just find a new sponsor, you know. And she reminded me that it's her decision whether or not she can sponsor me, not mine. You know, and I have to trust the process and trust that she has a God in her life too, and that she works the program, and you know, and not let all my garbage trick me. And so with what's happening for me today, it's been real important for me to be honest with them when they call. And sometimes it's been real important for me to remind them that it's not about them. You know. I don't know, the thought I had when people were sharing was like, my recovery is based on what I do today. You know, I get what I get for what I did today. And I think commitment kind of fits for that. And if I look at it like with my relationship with a loving God, if I had a loving relationship yesterday with a loving God and I had this wonderful commitment, that was great for yesterday. But it won't keep me clean today. It won't be there for me today. It's that just for today process, and that everything I do, if I don't bring it forward, it doesn't come forward. Kind of like, wow, what a concept. So that's where I'm at, just struggling with maybe the other side of it. And just trying to be okay with that. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Lori and I'm an addict. Sitting back here listening to all of you and Dan and thinking of how many commitments that I've made, big or small, since I've gotten in recovery almost a year ago. I guess the first commitment that was the scariest commitment for me was committing to the idea that I was an addict, accepting that idea. Once I got to the acceptance part, I was okay with that. A real important part for me with commitment is setting boundary lines. That's a real important thing for me to do. I was at a meeting or something and I heard something about boundary lines. And I went home and I have this neighbor that's a real, she doesn't like herself, so she uses everybody else or anything else. And I got tired of being a store, a phone booth, a taxi cab, you know, you name it. And this is what I was to this woman. And basically the bottom line was I was in the neighborhood. And so I got this brainstorm one day and got on the computer and typed up this little, whatever you want to call it, put it on the door sign, I guess. And it said, if you, and it's still up today, matter of fact, if you came here to borrow someone or something, we're out. Use someone or something, it's broken. This house is a home. It's not a taxi cab, a store, or a phone booth. But if you came here to visit, welcome. And I put welcome in huge letters. You'd be amazed at the comments that I got from this sign. And it's a real safe boundary for me. I shared this with my sponsor and she just like flipped out, you know, because in the last 2 months she's like, Lori, you know, you've really turned a new leaf. You've really grown a lot. And I really have my sponsorship family to thank for that. They were my eye-opener. I went to the meetings and I listened, but I really didn't hear what was going on, and I pretty much left more than I took. I call that I forgot the word I want to use here. It's like where you're just at a lull, and you're just hanging at that point. And then I went to our family retreat. It was just a weekend. It was in Lafayette with like 10, 12 women. And I didn't want to leave. I cried, you know. And that was a commitment that was scary for me to make, to go to this, to people I didn't know. And I really grew from this. I was really excited about coming here because I know that if that's what I got out of the little 10 or 12 group house, what could I get out of a convention, you know? I have a lot of commitments in my life that I make, service work commitments. But I'm like, I think it's Patty that has all these little things at home that she started and never finished. I'm very craft oriented. I couldn't tell you how many projects I started and stopped. And today I sort of look at it like, well, that was then, this is now. I still keep those things, and I think my husband thinks I'm a junk collector, and that's all right. I don't care. It doesn't matter. You know, that's his thoughts, and he's entitled to his own opinion. But those today are thoughts of me then and what I've accomplished to this point. My sponsor recently got married, and I started something for her, another commitment that I start. Hopefully, well, there's no hopefully, I will finish this commitment. Everything since Everything since I came into the program of Narcotics Anonymous that I have started, I can honestly say that I have finished, whether I liked it or not. It was I made a commitment to start the steps. The first step was, it was hell for me. I mean, I spent like 6 months on this first step. I'd go to the second step and all of a sudden it'd scare me, so I'd go back to the first, and just when I thought I'd get close to the second again, I'd go backwards again. Honestly, it took me about 9 months to finish that first step, and I know that I'm never finished with it. But I mean as in to move to the second step, writing, putting it in paper, dealing it, applying it in my life. Steps are a big commitment to me today. Since I came into the program, I've started working. I'm not at home anymore. My life has gotten in a lot better order than what it ever was. I have sponsees in my life today. And I hope that I give them what has been so freely given to me. Service work and sponsorship, whether I'm sponsoring someone or my sponsor, that's a very big commitment to me, just to take that person into my life and love them unconditionally. That's a very new concept. I'm not used to loving anybody except for Lori, and then I really didn't love her. As long as I got what I wanted when I wanted, I was happy. Today it's not about that. Today my high is seeing smiling faces, hearing recovery, just little hugs. Yeah, I love yous that come from people that you really don't know, but you can tell they're sincere. That to me is a big commitment. It's a big part of my program. I'm just real grateful to have these conventions. This is my first one. I'm real grateful to be at one. Grateful to have these meetings in my life, and a higher power that accepts me for who I am today and doesn't judge me, and people around the tables who don't judge me, and a program that offers unconditional love. With that, I'll pass.
Hi everybody, my name's Phil and I'm Manic. Hi Phil! Been really good to be here this weekend. And I hear everybody talk about how special this place has been for them the last 3 years, the last year, and how, as the time got closer to this happening, they're looking forward to it more and more. And then I hear a lot of people, talk about how their lives started to get real hectic and unmanageable before they got here, and this is exactly what they needed. And that's what happened to me, The last 2.5 weeks have been I've been at a real emotional bottom, I lost the person that I've been closest to for the last year, moved away, and left me with a real empty feeling. And I've been allowing myself to, feel those emotions and feel those, remember the things we went through and stuff like that, and I can relate to a lot what Patty was talking about, having a commitment to be good to yourself, and that being the hardest thing that I can do. The other commitments I have in my life, I really don't struggle with them. But why is it so hard for me to just be good to myself? I don't know. And I sit and you know, still tell myself, you know, you're not fucking good enough. You know, I'll see a bunch of people sitting around, and I'll go stand, you know, on the side of them or something. You ain't fucking good enough to sit down with them. And, you know, it just, I get real tired of that, you know. Cause I see all the, you know, the people that are around me that, I know care about me and, have, a lot of concern for me and love. And, you know, I don't know why I can't give that to myself. And that's something I've been working on, you know, what's lacking that was there before, you know, that I was really soaking up recovery and enjoying it, and just what happened was I stopped doing those little things for myself, you know, and you know, I had an opportunity this weekend to you know, to work and to they offered me, you know, to work this weekend and I'd make about as much as I'd make, you know, in 2 weeks. And I didn't even have to think about that. I just told them no. You know, no. I'm going to a camp out. Yeah, they couldn't understand, you know, but that's fine. I knew this is where I needed to be. Because I've never had a spiritual experience at work. You know, sometimes it feels like kind of a spiritual experience when I pick up that paycheck on Friday, but that eventually goes away when I sit down at the table and write out all them checks and it's pretty much gone. And that's another thing, you know, we talk about commitment. So these, the night step, some of my biggest night steps were financial amends. And, you know, I've been working my ass off to do this. And that's, you know, my sponsor pointed out to me that I just need to give myself a break. How you do that? You know, I don't know. I remember before my sponsor was my sponsor, I asked him when he gave a lead one night, and he was talking about honesty being the most important part of recovery in the beginning, you know. And I asked him, man, how do you be honest? You know, because I didn't know, you know. I didn't know if I was being honest or not, and but you want to stump somebody, ask me that question. How do you be honest? What does it take? And you know, the longer I come around, it seems more honest I can get. You know, my idea of honesty in the beginning was just telling people all the fucked up, crazy stuff I did, and was nothing more than that. Now I can sit here and you know, that stuff really isn't important. It's how I feel, you know, how I was feeling when I was doing those things, and why I kept doing them when I felt the way I did. So, you know, I definitely have made a commitment to this program, this fellowship, and in doing so, you know, I can't put in words what it's given me so far, and in only a short time. You know, I've celebrated a year today. Yeah. really know now what they talk about. First year being physical and second year being mental. Because it's only 5-6 hours into the second year and I'm already mentally fucked up. But I guess I'm in a good place to be there. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. So I'm just gonna pass.
Thanks for sharing.
Hello, everybody. I'm an addict named Dan. Hi, Dan. Tell you what I know about commitment in my recovery. Let me get settled down here. The first year I started coming around here, or even before that, I can't remember ever committing to anything. But I was in and out of this program. I'd stay clean for a couple of months, and as soon as I thought I might have to talk to somebody or ask somebody for help, I would go back out and use. And that really hurt me. To have to not be able to ask for help, because I knew from reading the book, even though I was going back out and using, I was coming to a meeting every day. And I was reading my book every day, and I tried a lot of the things they tell you not to do. I was cashing my check in a bar every Thursday. I was still hanging around old friends. I just couldn't make a commitment to it. And after about a year, I finally figured out that it wasn't not having material things and living on the street so much as it was the spiritual part of it. What I had to do to get drugs, how I felt about myself, and what the real problem was, me. When I figured that out, I started staying clean, but it was just replaced by anger, because I was mad because I had to give up my best friend. I could no longer, I couldn't do anything without drugs, and I had to give it up. And right around 6 months clean, I've been going through the steps, and I believe that for me, I go through all the steps all the time. I constantly read my book. In the wintertime, I don't read my book as much because I don't like reading it in the shop. But in the summertime, I get to spend time, like a half hour a day reading my book. And that's where I go when I got problems. I go to my higher power, I read my book, and I depend on you people. But anyway, I'm sweating here. But, right around 6 months clean, I still hadn't really asked anybody for help. And I still really hadn't gotten with the third step. I knew everything that I knew about living almost killed me. And I knew that if I didn't want to use, I was going to have to completely change my old ways of thinking or go back to using. And I kind of sort of believed that I was going to be restored to sanity. And then came the third step, that commitment part. And I don't know, I was feeling real angry. We were going up north deer hunting. And I was so angry that it was, I was actually feeling a physical pain in my head, because nothing was going my way. I couldn't control anything. I wanted to use. I don't know, I got out there in the woods, and it just dawned on me, you know, if I want to stay clean, and if I don't want to be angry, and if I want to feel good about myself, you know, I got to make a commitment to work the program, you know, and it goes all the way back to the first step where it says, you know, I have to do whatever it takes to change my ways of thinking. You know, I need a personality change, and you know, so I think right at that point, my whole life changed as far as, you know, being in recovery and not using, because I think either that day, either when I got back from that trip, either I was going to use, you know, and die, or that day I was going to make a decision to work the program. And I made a decision to work the program, you know. I asked Lynn there to be my sponsor, you know, and I started reaching out and asking for help. And it was the biggest commitment I had ever made in my life. And I try to stay with that commitment, you know, to this day. You know, a lot of times I wanna do what I wanna do, and I wanna do it the way I wanna do it. And all I gotta do is wait till lunchtime at work, or usually that's when I'm gonna do what I wanna do, is at work. And I wait till lunchtime, I go out there and I read through that book. And it doesn't have to be the steps, it can be any one of the chapters or any one of the personal stories in it. And it always seems that I find out what I need to know, you know, what I need to do, because I believe in that book, you know, and I believe in you people, because I wasn't doing real well on my own, and I don't know. I'm grateful that I committed myself to this program, and started to learn how to live, because my life's done nothing but get better. And you know, there's other commitments, you know, that come with recovery, you know, commitments to this job or commitments to this person, or and you know, they're important, but they're not as important as that third step, you know, turning my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand them. You know, that's the biggest commitment I've ever made in my life, and that's the one that saved my life. And I'm grateful for it, you know. As you can see, I still have fear of getting up in front and talking to people, you know. I'm okay at my home groups or at home, you know, and everybody knows me. And I don't know. You know, one of the things that I always read about, and I can't remember exactly what chapter it's in, recovery and relapse. But it says that if you're not being honest, open-minded, and willing, not just part of the time, but every day, you're opening yourself up for a relapse, you know. And I believe that, you know. I know there's people that I used to hang around with that are still out there, and every once in a while I hear how they're looking, and I'm totally surprised that they're still alive, because the other half of the people I used to hang around with are dead. And they just don't get it. You know, they don't understand what's happening. I don't know why I do. You know, I don't know why I'm staying clean and they're not. Because Lord knows I was just as bad as they were. You know what I mean? I was doing all the same things, and not that I'm any better than them now. You know, I'm just not using it, and I'm trying to do the right things. I don't know. You know, that's my feelings on commitment in this program. You know, is I've committed myself to do the right thing. You know, and in my heart I know what the right thing is. You know, I'm not saying I always do the right thing. You know, I make mistakes, and I'm human, and but you know, I'm grateful to be here, and these guys got me sweating, so thanks.
Hi everybody, my name is Lynn, I'm an addict. Hi Lynn. Love to make Dan sweat. Dan and I have been friends ever since we come to recovery together. You know, the nature of this disease is, we're 3-inning ball players, you know, great starters, poor finishers. But I had to make some kind of a direct commitment to put that off to the side, you know, and to get on with my recovery. And it didn't come easy. The one commitment that has come easy to me is the commitment each day to make that decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of my higher power for his guidance and direction. And as long as I do that on a daily basis, the other ones are an ongoing process for me. And I'm not really worried about if I'm passing. You know, to me, a D- is still passing. So to me, that's okay, you know. I remember what I thought was a real major commitment. At the end of 1 year, I went to a lady in the fellowship who had been helping me to try and learn how to be a good husband. I was having a lot of trouble with how to treat women, you know, when I was out there using, as so many of us had done, you know. I'd found myself with a prejudiceness towards women, and I would use them, you know, for their money or their bodies or for anger release or whatever, you know. And I was married, and I didn't know how to be a good husband, you know. And I went at the end of a year, and I said, Ann, I said, what do I do now? I got my year in, you know. And she said, well, you made a commitment to not use drugs for a year. It's time to make another commitment, Lynn. You know, and she said, what area would you like to try that in? And I said, well, I know an area. I said, but I'm kind of a little nervous about talking about it. And she said, well, what is it, you know? I said, well, I'd like to be the best husband I can be. You know, and she said, well, why don't you work on that for, you know, your commitment for the next year? And that was so enjoyable, so very, very enjoyable, so rewarding that I tried to do that in all areas of my recovery after that. I looked at that 4th-step list. I looked at that 8-step list, and where it said family members, where it said fellow employees, where it said people in the fellowship, you know. I tried to be a good employee, you know. I tried to go into work every single day after making that commitment with a positive attitude. I couldn't change the boss if he had a bad night, or I couldn't change the guy next to me if he was up all night with a sick child who was making him stay up on his hours. But I could have a positive attitude, you know. And with those family members, you know, I made that commitment to being a good brother, not something earth moving, you know, nothing shattering, but a good brother, somebody that calls up my family and says hi to them. How are you doing? That sister-in-law who I had embarrassed all those years of my using, and she had told my brother, you know, that Lynn's not welcome at the house no more, you know. Today I call up, you know, and I ask her if there's anything I can do around the house for her, you know, if I can help out in different ways and stuff, and it's a good feeling, you know. And those type of commitments, I don't find hard. But I have to start it off each day with that commitment to my higher power. In some of my work in the fellowship, going into H&I and going into the rehab centers and stuff like that, it makes me feel good when I'll tell the fellows that we make that decision on a daily basis to turn our lives more to the care of our higher power. And I'll ask the question, you know, when's the last time that Lynn done that? You know, and it feels good to be able to tell them, well, it was this morning. You know, and when was the last time before that? And it feels even better to tell them it was yesterday morning, you know. So that commitment's first and foremost in my daily routine, and it makes everything else kind of blend in and work a lot easier for me. I don't find recovery in commitment areas hard. You know, I hear people say, "Oh, recovery, it's hard." To me, that's garbage. Lack of recovery is hard. You know, it was hard to use out in them streets. You know, I didn't earn $1,000 a week. I spent $1,000 a week. So I had to do a lot of things to get that $1,000 every week. You know, and that was work. That was a lot of hard work. You know, a lot of hours. And I don't want to ever have to go through that type of a commitment again for the rewards that I was getting out there. You know, a slow, painful death like that. I'm grateful to this fellowship for showing me new directions today, new areas to put my energy towards. I'm still bad about if I say to Nancy, well, let's get together this week and we'll do something. I probably will, but not necessarily, you know, because being clean, we don't have enough hours in the day anymore for all the things that we like to do, because we robbed ourselves. Our lives were so narrow before, and we didn't do so many things that today we try to cram a lot of life into 24 hours every day, and it doesn't always work out, you know. But I try not to overcommit. I try to live up to if I can be somewhere to be there at a certain time. I try always to leave 3 hours a day open for the newcomers and for men that I sponsor. Always between 3:30 and 6:30 in the evening. When I give my number out, I always tell them those hours I'm always home. It helps that it's the dinner hour, you know, but still I keep those 3 hours open. I make sure that I have call waiting on my telephone in case somebody else is there. I make certain that I have an extra extension phone in another room, so that if something's going on in the TV room, that I can go off and talk in another room to somebody to give them that time. And I use that time myself too to call other recovering addicts. I have to plug in every day with people, every single day. I have to have that hands-on contact, and that's one commitment that I enjoy making too. Grateful to be here today. Thank you for letting me share.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? I'm still an addict named Dan. And something I was thinking about sitting back here and you know, everybody's sharing about coming to conventions, and I learned early in my recovery that where I find the most committed people are at conventions. That's why I'm here. You know, I'm here to learn from everybody else, and when I keep seeing the same faces at just about any convention I go to, that reassures me that they are committed to their recovery, you know. And that goes back to what I was talking about when I first introduced the two speakers. Both Patty and Nancy have been here every year, so that tells me something about their recoveries. Glad you're all here, and thanks for sharing. If you would help me close with a group hug and prayer. Coming back.